Thanks for everybody for joining this morning. I know that the last year and a bit has been tough for the community, but especially for our small businesses and people that are working, on their own or by themselves. It's certainly been a trying time. So earlier this week, we passed our second budget during this pandemic, the 2021 budget, Ontario's action plan, protecting people's health and our economy. And in this next phase of the government's response to COVID-19, it is the second during this pandemic. Ontario is providing additional round of support through the Ontario Small Business Support Grant, totaling an estimated $1.7 billion to help eligible employers impacted by necessary public health restrictions. In this budget, we are also investing in additional $10 million in the Digital Main Street program in 2020 and 21-22 to help more small businesses achieve a digital transition and serve customers effectively online. We are committing $400 million over 4 years to create Invest Ontario Fund, which will support Invest Ontario and encourage investments in key sectors of advanced manufacturing, technology, and life services. Ontario is also investing $56.4 million over the next 4 years to create Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network, which will help build upon the successful elements of the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network, accelerating the development of next generation electric, connected, and autonomous vehicle and mobility technologies, as well as supporting Ontario's role as the manufacturing hub of Canada. We are extending the Ontario Together Fund by 1 year to support businesses, organizations, and communities that are working to protect the safety and security of Ontarians. We're investing in an additional $50 million this year to continue to support local businesses to further enhance domestic capacity and help support the safety and security of the people of Ontario. The extension of this fund is a 2-year commitment of $100 million. And we're investing $1 million in 21-22 to support enhancements in the Ontario MAID program to reach more retailers and manufacturers and to encourage participation and to build awareness and recognition among customers or consumers of the Ontario MAID projects and products. These include increasing signage at retail stores, Made in Ontario pavilions at fall fairs, and community events when safe, and enhancing and leveraging digital marketing. So maybe I mention a few things about the Ontario Business Support Grant. The government recognizes that small businesses impacted by the public health measures require additional support so that they can continue serving their communities and employing people in Ontario once COVID-19 is behind us. So that is why the government introduced a Ontario Small Business Grant Support that provided a minimum of $20,000 and up to $40,000 for eligible small business owners to help navigate the challenging period. Small businesses required to close and significantly restrict services under the provincial shutdown were able to apply for a one-time grant to recover some of their lost revenue. Each small business may use the support in whatever way makes most sense to their individual businesses. For example, some businesses will need support paying employees rent and wages, while others will use to maintain their inventory. The grant provided businesses with a dollar-for-dollar funding to a maximum of $40,000 to help cover a decreased revenue expected as a result of the province-wide shutdown. Just lost it, sorry here. So the business must demonstrate they experience a revenue decline of at least 20% when comparing monthly revenue in April 2019 and April 2020. So last one was the reimbursements, rebates for the property tax, hydro, and the PPE. Ontario is also providing $600 million in relief support eligible businesses required to close or significantly restrict services due to enhanced public health measures, doubling our initial commitment of $300 million made in the 2020 budget. The rebates for property tax and energy cost rebate grants are intended to cover the length of time the business is required to temporarily close or significantly restrict services as a result of being located in an area categorized as a control or lockdown area, previously categorized in a modified state 2 stage 2 public health restrictions. Both businesses can expect to receive their rebate payments within a few weeks of submitting their completed application. And we are also providing the Main Street Recovery Grant to assist small businesses in their most impacted sectors with PPE costs. The grant provides a one-time reimbursement for up to $1,000 for eligible small businesses with 2 to 19 employees in retail, food, and accommodation sectors, service sectors like repair and maintenance, personal and laundry services, gym and yoga services, and the recreation sectors. Businesses can apply online for the Main Street Recovery Grant for PE, temporary property tax and energy costs rebate grants from the province via the easy-to-use one-window portal of ontario.ca/COVID supports. So we have many supports going forward, and I mentioned them all. They're on our websites, but it really is about trying to make sure that as much as possible, we hit the ground running when we finish. Now, is it enough? I'm sure it's not. And is everybody eligible? At this point, we can't guarantee that. We're working, but it is something we haven't experienced before. We've had good success working with the federal government to make sure that we leverage both levels of funding. We've put money in broadband. About $4 billion is what we've committed over the next number of years to support, to make sure as many people as possible can receive this what now is considered an essential service in Ontario. So lots to be done, lots more to be done. So I guess I'll turn it back to Candy, and we're here for the rest of the duration.
Thank you so much, MPP. I'm going to now turn it over to Candy Pollard with the Cornwall Business and Enterprise Center so that Candy can go through a few of the programs. We are going to come back to the MPP MacDonnell a little later on this morning for a question period as well. Candy, you're on mute.
Good morning, everyone. You'd think by now I would figure it out. Tara, can I share my PowerPoint?
Certainly, we will hook you up. Give us a minute while we switch that over.
Not a problem.
Please proceed, Candy.
Thank you. So there, I'm going to assume that everyone can see this. So as Tara said, Cornwall Business Enterprise Center, but don't let the name fool you. We do cover all of SDG as well as Akwesasne. So I'll get right into it. The first program that I want to talk about for a few minutes this morning is our Starter Company Plus program. It is funded by the province of Ontario, and it is for new, expanding, or the purchase of an existing business. So it really does cover a wide expanse of business types. It was created several years ago as an educational and training program. There is a grant of up to $4,500 potentially available because it is a competitive process. But the grant is not the main focus of the program. The main focus is education and training. So we do that through many, many webinars on everything from home-based business expenses, travel expenses, government regulations, taxes, business planning, financial forecasting, marketing. So I think in the next couple of months, we actually have about 12 webinars scheduled, and they are specific to any kind of business can use them. So it's really good training, and we do work one-on-one with our clients as well. The program does 2 intakes per year, one in the spring and one in the fall. So the spring one has already closed, and right now we have 40 applicants who are into that program. So it just shows that people are getting more and more enthusiastic and encouraged as we move forward and try to come out of COVID. The fall applications will be taken probably in the 3rd and 4th week of August, so that when September comes, we can actually move forward. We also have a new program that just opened in the last several months called Digital Consult. This is designed to assist businesses with their COVID recovery. So they have to have been in business prior to COVID hitting in March of 2020. The applicants are eligible to receive one-on-one consultation with an expert in various topics, such as finance, bookkeeping, legal, marketing. So what they would do is they would meet, whether it's virtually or by phone these days, with an expert in marketing or in legal, if that's what they need. So they have up to an hour and a half for each consultation. And it, of course, is specific to their own business. They can access up to a maximum of 3 consults per participant. And those 3 consults can be one with finance, one with marketing, one with legal, or 2 with marketing, 1 with finance, or all 3 with marketing or finance. So it can be a mixture of, and it is to help them with different things, such as, I got this grant and this grant, I'm not sure if I've taken care of it through my bookkeeping properly. So they get that information. Maybe they've gotten a grant or a loan that has a forgivable portion. They don't know how to handle it in their business. Potentially it could be, you know, I've got this loan and I have to pay back 20,000 or 40,000 of it, and I'm not sure how to do that within my bookkeeping, or I'm not sure, should I do it one-on-one or monthly? Should I start paying back monthly? Should I start putting it into a separate account? That kind of thing. It could even be that I now have an online store and I need to market it and I'm not quite sure how to do it digitally. So all kinds of different things, but we can help them specifically for their business through these referrals to these experts. The program does end at the end of September 2021. I am hoping that some of those monies do get renewed, but we'll see. Our core services always one-on-one consultations for assistance with various business topics. And we do work very closely with a lot of our clients on their marketing plans, their digital marketing, their business plan development. Government regulations is another big one. So those are the types of services that we can offer to help businesses as they open, as they grow, as they survive. So this is our contact information. And I will be able to provide this to Tara. And Tara, if you want to share it with attendees afterwards, then that's great for us. And that's basically what I wanted to do this morning.
Candy, thank you so much for your time. And we will definitely be sending the panelists some information following this meeting on all of the organizations and the presenters speaking today. And if they have any follow-up questions, they can reach out directly to the panelists. They can also reach out to me at SDG counties or to their local municipalities and speak with their economic development officers. And we've got a number of agencies and a number of people who are happy to help figure out what needs to be done to help your business. Next up, I'm going to ask that Leslie Thompson prepare. Leslie has a slide deck as well, so we're going to have her sharing her screen. Todd, if you could set that up. Leslie, I will pass this on to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Tara and Todd and the team at the counties for organizing this. It's definitely a bit of a transition period where we have a fiscal year ending for most of us and a new one starting and a lot of programs ending and some that are not necessarily rolled out yet. So it's a good time to touch base with everyone to just let them know that there is still a lot going on that we can help them with and hopefully get ahead of some other opportunities that might be on the horizon.
Everyone, I just, Candy, you'll have to relinquish your responsibilities as the meeting host. So if you know how to do that, great. If you don't, I can walk you through it.
I do not know how to do that.
Okay, so just take your mouse and hover over Leslie and you'll see 3 little dots, a little icon like that. If you click on those little dots, there should be an option that comes up to make host. And just click on that and then Leslie will be able to share her screen.
There we go.
Okay, excellent. How's that? Did everyone see? Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of a programs update, but before I talk about programs, I don't want to take it for granted that everyone knows what the CFDC is. So I'll give a bit of an overview there, and I'll introduce myself. So my name is Leslie Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of the CFDC, which is a Community Futures Development Corporation. I have been the Executive Director for about 6 years. Prior to that, I was with the board for a little over a year. And prior to that, I was with the Business Development Bank of Canada. So always in kind of economic development, impact-based lending. Now, the community futures here in our region has been around for over 33 years. So we've been doing this for quite a while. And the program's been around for about that long as well. There are 267 across Canada and 15 in Eastern Ontario. We are all independent, so we have contracts with the federal government or the province, or we do our own internal work. But so we're beholden to a certain extent to the terms of those contracts, but we work independently, and that's really important because that offers us the flexibility to respond to our community. We are not for profit, so we're not revenue driven, we're impact driven, and we are focused exclusively on our local economy of Akwesasne, Cornwall, and SDG. So the main contract that we deliver is the FedDev Ontario program. So I will talk a little bit more about that, but we do also have a network of local independent not-for-profits. I said 267 across Canada. So there's a Canada Association, Ontario Association, and the Eastern Ontario Association. So we're all working together to serve our community and our country. We are exclusively in rural regions. We are governed 100% by volunteer directors. So they're all your neighbors. Over 33 years, there's a lot of people that have been on the Community Futures Board. And we want to act as a hub of business information, or a place where you can come to get referrals to people like Candy or other networks that are important economic development or business support services in our community. We work to facilitate greater collaboration, ideally between the different municipalities in the region, or the different economic development, business development support groups in the region. We also lead and support a large variety of economic development initiatives in the region, and it's all dependent on what our community says that they need most. Our bread and butter, as I say, is that we are a lender. So we are meant to be complementary to the existing lenders out there. So you need to still have a bank if you work with us, because we don't take deposits, but we do provide flexible lending that is meant to fill the financing gap. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the RRF program. I'm going to give a very brief overview of the CREATE program, as well as our technology innovation program, ongoing loan programs, our new micro credit program partnership with ACFO, as well as a CIP RIP matching program. And I recognize that I have 7 minutes to do this because we've got the minister joining, and I don't want to take her time. Far more important than I am. So Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, it came out after CEBA. CEBA, they found that CEBA just didn't cover everyone. There was a lot of people falling through the cracks, and so they came out with the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. It's the same as CEBA, but it's more flexible. It's focused on Main Street and sole proprietors, and really anyone that's falling through the cracks. There were a few iterations of the program, just like there were constant changes with CEBA. But in the most recent iteration, there was a portion that could go towards business services. So we were able to help businesses directly with loans, but we also supported business service organizations with a number of economic development projects. And I'm going to talk about just a few of those very briefly, because some of them are intended to be evergreen and help businesses not only through the pandemic, but well into the future. One of them was the Akwesasne Peer Circles and Learning Summit, and that's an ongoing consortium of businesses who are just working together with guidance of professionals. There really wasn't a unified group. There was a chamber, but it had taken a bit of a hiatus. So this brought back life into the business community in Akwesasne. Get Current, which if you are a tourism or event related business, I do encourage you to visit the getcurrent.ca page. This was a program that was funded in part by the Technology Innovation Program, and it helps business owners tap into new streams of revenue by connecting them to Cornwall SDG events. So you can create a promotion and it will go to thousands of event goers. You can also, it also acts mainly as a ticketing and event platform, which is designed to create seamless entertainment experiences for customers, but it really also helps with time ticket entry and all of the COVID related changes to events that are going to be happening. And it is run by the Cornwall End Area Chamber. So it is an exclusively locally focused tool. We also funded Pivot Points, which is a video series that our COVID-19 Business Relief Advisor, Doreen Ashton Wagner, was a host of. And that also was another chamber project. It features conversations with local business owners that they get into, you know, kind of the weeds of what struggles they face, the changes they've made, and the successes they've had. So it's a way for business owners to connect with one another where they can't right now and learn from one another. We also funded an accelerator for ag tech focused social enterprises, as well as creates COVID advisory services. Now I'll briefly talk about these advisory services. So anyone who has, like the program Candy has, you've taken on all this debt. Now what? You still don't have revenues back up to where they were, and you certainly don't have net income back up to where it was. So how do you service this debt? How do you maximize the forgivable portion? And also, how can you estimate your industry specifically and what that recovery looks like? Well, Create's designed a tool in partnership with Sagi Financial, and they are going to give access to a business plan software with cash flow forecasting. But it also helps, this program also helps you get pitch ready. So if you need equity investment, even if you're pitching to a bank, they can help you frame that conversation, build out the cash flow forecast in a way that's really digestible and usable to you, but attractive to someone who's looking at it from a financing standpoint. Our technology innovation program was a great success. We originally had hoped that we would get 15 clients through this program. We ended up with 45, and it was a $500,000 program that helped businesses with all manner of things. We worked with 8 really savvy technology and digital gurus in the region, and it allowed business owners to receive a high quality of service from creative professionals at half the cost. A lot of them did entirely new websites, brand strategy, implemented software systems, transition to cloud-based bookkeeping, you name it, we helped them with it. Now, unfortunately, it's currently at capacity, but we are eagerly awaiting some news about additional funding. Nothing's guaranteed, but you know, we're going to keep trying to find sources of funding because this program was a huge success, and there's still a lot of demand for it. We do have an active wait list, so if you are interested, please do call us and we'll make sure to get you on there. Of course, we still have ongoing core programming. The CFDC can fund up to $400,000. We have the Community Futures kind of mainstream program, but we also have a community venture fund, which can supplement that program. And as I said, this is really focused on your success. It's not focused on us making, you know, we still have to ensure we're sustainable, but it's all about what impact is going to be to the community, to your business, to your family. And I see Minister Lisa McLeod here on the screen, so I think I'll just jump over to my wrap-up screen. We do have a new microcredit program and a CIP and REP matching program, which are very low interest rates. So in the end, if you look something like this, you can call us. You can reach out to our business relief advisor. We understand that the shutdowns, uncertainty, anxiety, confusion, the frustration, we hear it all from business owners. You're definitely not alone. And if you want to speak to a real person, that's what we're here for. So I would encourage you to contact Doreen Ashton-Wagner or myself, and we can elaborate on some of these programs that I didn't get a chance to jump into, and anything else at all that you want to talk about.
Leslie, thank you so much for that. It was a great presentation. And as I had mentioned earlier, we are going to be sending out all of the slide decks to the participants afterwards with the contact information for all of your local agencies who might be able to support your businesses. Right now, I would like to say hello and to the Honorable Lisa McLeod, the Ontario Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Cultural Industries. Lisa, we are so happy to have you joining us today, and I will pass on the podium to you.
Thank you so much, Tara, and thanks for everybody for joining in today and for including me. I'd also like to make a special recognition to my very good friend, Jim McDonnell, one of my closest colleagues at Queen's Park. And of course, it was without hesitation when he asked me if I would join in today, that I would immediately say yes. As you know, as one of your neighboring MPPs, I'm very fond of the Stormont Dundas and South Glengarry, the complete area. And over this past summer, had the opportunity to visit with Jim over to Cornwall and to a few other locations. And as you know, the ministry I represent and the Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries also has incredible assets in your community with respect to the St. Lawrence Parks Commission, which we continue to support. It's really important, I think, that we have a serious conversation with all of the business owners within the sectors that I represent. I would often say prior to COVID-19, we represent a spectacular double bottom line. On the one hand, between our cultural institutions and our sport and recreation and our festivals and events, we have a spectacular social bottom line, which contributes to the cultural fabric of the province of Ontario. It reminds us why we love where we live, and it reminds visitors that come to Ontario why they love to join us over our summers or our winters because of that strong cultural fabric. The other side, however, was of that spectacular double bottom line. It was a $75 billion suite of sectors, which is larger than forestry, mining, and agriculture put together, and larger than the GDP of Manitoba. So you really are looking at a powerhouse suite of sectors when they're all combined, whether that's film and television production, animation, whether it is those festivals and events that take place across Ontario, our museums, our art galleries, and of course, our tourism and cultural attractions that generate so much income. I often say we are the ultimate small business sector with many mom and pop shops across the province, dealing with whether that's restaurants or a local art gallery or a small cultural and tourism attraction. We also deal with some of the biggest brands in the world, our NBA Toronto Raptors, or it's Air Canada, or it's some of the major hotel chains and resorts across Ontario. And then on the social side, we are also the largest not-for-profit and volunteer sector in the province, and we are responsible for the Order of Ontario, which is Ontario's most prestigious award, as well as the Volunteer Service Awards that go into every single community each and every year. And just on that note, I wanted to point out two things. First, the Ontario Trillium Foundation's Community Building Fund has had its deadline extended. That is a $105 million fund for tourism, culture, sport, and recreation. And again, that deadline has been increased, and that's for not-for-profits. And also our Volunteer Service Awards, as well as the Order of Ontario, has been extended to the end of this week, an extra month just in advance of COVID. So I really wanted to mention that. But as exciting as it all is, and the wonderful things that we represent, we were hit first in this pandemic. We were hit hardest, and the sectors that I represent will take the longest to recover. That's because we've been hit by the triple threat. First and foremost, we are none of us would argue against the fact that we are in a very real public health crisis. Obviously, as a result of that, an economic crisis ensued. And finally, the social crisis that is going to take years for us to recover, particularly in my high-touch sectors that require lots of people to congregate and come together in order for our events, our business travelers, our international visitors to reconvene. We've done a number of things in the ministry over the past 14 months in order to engage our industry partners and our sectoral leaders, as well as other government officials. And we pivoted very quickly in making sure our entire allocation got out the door very quickly. So just because museums and galleries were shuttered, we continued to flow their funding. Likewise, we did the same thing with our public libraries, as well as with our special events. We transitioned the Celebrate Ontario Fund, which usually supports over 250 festivals and events across Ontario, into a Reconnect fund. And we're able to support over 300 events during this past year to support either sunk and eligible costs for those events that were either postponed or canceled, or who transitioned into virtual or drive-in and drive-through events. So we were able to get about $20 million out the door to support that type of infrastructure for community building. As I said, we increased the Ontario Trillium Foundation's annual operating budget of $103 million with an additional $105 million. And we increased the Ontario Arts Council's budget from $60 million to an additional $25 million last year, and an additional $10 million this year. So we continue to support our artists and our core and iconic cultural institutions. And speaking of our core and cultural institutions, the St. Lawrence Parks Commission, along with about 13 other agencies and attractions aligned with this ministry that are forward-facing, was a recipient of over $62 million combined for all of them in order for us to continue to preserve and protect those iconic institutions. So whether that is Upper Canada Village or the Kingston Penitentiary tours that we're offering, or the campgrounds in between, that has been something that we have been absolutely committed to making sure that they remain whole, and that when we come out of this pandemic, that they are very much supported. Now, as you all know, the government has had some small business grants. We doubled them in this last budget that just passed this week, so that money will start to flow. We've also invested $100 million into tourism small business grants. We'll be releasing more details later, and I'll be having a briefing actually right after this on how we can get that money to flow as soon as possible. My ministry is also going to be coming out with $100 million in tourism and economic development recovery funding, and those details are still being worked out, but we want to make sure that we have a refined product post-COVID-19 so that we are in a position to get people traveling again. There's a few other buckets of money that you may not be aware of yet, but I think are going to be absolutely critical in our social recovery. So those multicultural communities, as well as religious institutions, we have set aside $50 million in the ministry in order to get them to safely re-enter and reopen. We've got over $200 million between my ministry and the Ministry of Infrastructure for cultural and recreation funding. So that those details will be ironed out fairly shortly. As you can appreciate, the budget only passed 2 days ago, but this is where we're at. We've put $13 million into agritourism to support our craft wineries and grape growers. $10 million again into the Arts Council, $15 million for our regional tourism organizations. We are making sure our provincial parks are free from Monday to Thursday. And then one of the things I'm actually very excited about that's in a different ministry, but I think is going to support my sectors, is the $260 million training tax credit through the Ministry of Labour. So all said, I believe that my sectors will be the beneficiary of over $1 billion worth of spending from this budget, and making sure that they have that opportunity is going to be absolutely critical. And in order to make sure that we get the funding to the right places, we have engaged 3 organizations, in particular, the Tourism Economic Development Recovery Task Force, which is led right now by former Minister of Tourism, Tim Hudak. They'll be reporting back shortly, and we're going to have a very robust plan as we move out over the next 5 years as we recover to 2019 levels. And roughly 2024 to 2025. The second is we have a restaurant working group meeting with weekly and bringing in other cabinet ministers to see how we can best support that ailing industry. Obviously we'll lend our voice at the nationwide conversations to make sure that there is a relief fund similar to that in the United States. But there's other things that we can do as a province that we're looking at and we're working with them on. And finally, film and television production has been something that has been a bit of a mainstay during this pandemic. And as you all probably are aware yourselves, streaming has increased by over 40% during the pandemic. And so we continue to work with them, and I'll be meeting with my film and television advisory panel tomorrow to see how we can grow film production, not just in Toronto and Ottawa and North Bay, but build out film-friendly locations across Ontario, and in particular into Eastern Ontario. And so we're looking forward to that. Of course, this comes off the heels of the announcement I was able to make yesterday with Netflix that they have secured a Canadian corporate headquarters, and that will be coming to Toronto, creating obviously lots of jobs, but just as importantly, a great deal of opportunity. So again, this has been a very difficult time for our sectors. I know that there are many on this call who have suffered a great deal as a result of COVID-19. It's uncertainty. And the fact that this has lasted longer and has cut more deeper than 9/11, the global economic recession, and the SARS crisis all rolled into one. And so I'm going to finish on this before we get into questions. It's okay for anybody on this call to feel anxiety, depression, or any other stresses that lead to some mental health challenges. And I say this as somebody who has suffered myself and who seeks support. So if you were on, and I saw the slide earlier where it looked like someone was pulling their hair out, I know that you have all probably felt that at least one time, if not every day during this pandemic. There are supports available to you and for you. And it is okay to seek help, and it is okay to talk about it. And if anyone has any questions that they have with respect to mental health today, please, my team is on the call. MPP McDonnell is on the call. If we can refer you to those appropriate places, let us do that. But it is okay to talk about it, and it is okay to seek help, and it is okay to acknowledge that you are not okay. And we've had this conversation many times within this sector. And I can tell you, like dealing with some of the folks in the live music sector when they've lost everything, and getting on the call at 7 o'clock in the morning and hearing strong people, or, cry. It's all right. We can all be there for each other. And there is no silver bullet to get out of this pandemic. It's a global issue. And the best we can do is to be there for each other. So on the one hand, yes, we'll get you the supports through the finances, but just as importantly, we need to get you the supports for the mental health as well. So with that, Leslie and Tara, I'll pass it back to you, and perhaps MPP McDonnell may want to say a few words as well. But I'm here till 9:30 to listen and to answer any questions that I can help answer. Thank you.
Minister McLeod, thank you so much for your words. And you're right, mental health has been an issue that we're facing across the board, and we'll make sure that we send out some of the contact information for the local resources to everybody who's registered today. MPP McLeod, my apologies, MPP McDonnell, do you have a few words that you would like to say before we start the question period?
It was a McLeod. He loves being called MPP McLeod.
Yeah, my mother was a McLeod, so we try to hide that. Thanks. I want to thank the minister for being on today, and she's been a great neighbor, and she's a neighbor to the northwest of us, and has been there over the years, and certainly over the last couple, as we really try to navigate through this tough time. And I think it was important. I was happy that she talked about some of the impact of the stress that many people are seeing, whether it be financial or just the lockdown itself. It's been hard on many people, and there are resources to help everybody through that, because we realize this is not business as usual. It's not life as usual, but the light is at the end of the tunnel, as they say, and we're getting close. Let's just get back and make sure that our businesses, and especially in Mr. McLeod's jurisdiction, the not-for-profits or hotels, are most capable of getting back, because it will be a slow transition. It won't be a matter of turning on the switch and people are just out again. It's going to take some time to get confidence back up and, of course, pay bills. So I'll turn things back so she can answer questions while she's here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So, Minister McLeod, as you had mentioned, we were happy to host you last year, and we do hope that you'll return to the counties this summer. We have a number of assets who would love to host you at their new and expanding businesses. We're here to talk about those who are struggling today, but we also do have a number of success stories. So I applaud all of our local businesses who are moving forward with their expansions and their growth period this year, because we do have some amazing places and some amazing assets and tourism points to highlight, as well as all of our strong businesses who are fighting the good fight and staying open this year. So
And
our
they'll
first
really
question.
benefit. And just before that, one thing I didn't mention, but they'll really benefit. Last year, when I had the opportunity to be with Jim, and of course we spent some time with Bernadette, your mayor, and we toured around. It was really great. And one of the things I really wanted after I did that 11-week tour was a travel incentive. So we're unveiling, when it's safe to do so, $150 million tax credit. It'll be a 20% tax credit for travel across Ontario. And so we'll unveil it when we're allowed to travel again. But I think that is going to be a really good incentive to get to people touring into your community.
That's incredible news, and we look forward to more detail. Our first question today towards Minister McLeod comes from Barbara Ann. She's with the Stormont Fair. We've had a few questions related to agricultural fairs, as our region is very heavy in agriculture. Barbara Ann has asked, at what point consideration might be given for groups of 1,000 to 5,000 people to gather for some of these agricultural fairs in some manner or another? So this could include the drive-ins, it could include hybrid versions of virtual and in-person fairs.
Yeah, Tara, thank you very much. And Barbara Ann, thank you for that question. We work weekly. I'm on the Jobs and Recovery Committee of Cabinet. I have about 24 of the 30 sectors that have been shuttered through this ministry. And we are working diligently with the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs. So Minister Hardeman and I are looking at this. So we have done a lot of work on the festival and event side. We're looking obviously at some of the practices that are occurring elsewhere in the world with rapid antigen testing. What does that look like? Minister Hardeman does have some money for the agricultural fairs. We also have some money for through the Reconnect Festival and Event Program. I can say at the moment, it is going to be nearly impossible to tell you when we're going to be able to flick that switch, because it really does, it is contingent upon getting vaccines into people's arms, and then providing a framework, if you will. And my hope is we get closer to a framework where you'll have a good indication of what is the caseload, how many people are vaccinated, what are the protocols in place in terms of sanitation, rapid testing, that type of thing, and then layered on with the ability to continue to social distance. So we're working on it. I don't have an exact answer for you right now, but it is being the work is being led at the Jobs and Recovery Committee that is meeting on this Friday on this very issue. And it's being guided by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. So my suggestion to anybody at the moment is to start looking at the drive-in, drive-through hybrid virtual model that's turned out to be quite successful this past summer. And I have a number of agricultural fairs in my old riding. I used to have the Metcalfe Fair, the Richmond Fair, and the Gloucester Fair, which is now the Capital Fair. And I don't anymore just in the Nepean riding, but certainly we want to make sure that they thrive. Some of these fairs have been going on for over 100 years, you know, and we want to make sure that post-pandemic they're around for another 100.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from Ron Curry with the Russell Manor, and he's specifically asking what supports might be coming to support bed and breakfasts.
Yeah, great question. Had the opportunity to visit a few of them last summer, and obviously, although you weren't mandated to close, I can tell you, just looking at Ottawa and Toronto's municipal accommodation tax and the steep decrease there, you know, it's really been very tough on all of you. So that's why our government is going to introduce, or we have introduced, the new Ontario Small Business Support Grant. It's estimated about $100 million in one-time payments of anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000 to eligible businesses. And some of those businesses would include hotels and motels. So I think you qualify there. I know that there's a number of people asking for travel agencies to be included. They are as well. Amusement and water parks, hunting and fishing camps, recreation and vacation camps. For example, children's overnight camps, they have suffered as well. So the application details, as I said, will be available hopefully within the week. I've got a final briefing on that this morning, and we just want to make sure that we have it all nailed down to make sure that we support as many people as we possibly can that would fit within these sectors. In addition, we doubled the Ontario Small Business Grant. So I'm not sure if you are eligible for that, given your number of employees. But if you've not applied for that, I would suggest reaching out to MPP McDonnell's office. I know Marilyn in his office is a superstar at constituency work. So just to check that out. But hopefully in the next week, I'll be making an announcement with those further details, just based on the fact that the budget just passed. I hope that answered your question, Ron.
Thank you. Our next question is one that's come up at a number of our public meetings, and it comes from Rory McLennan at Summer Heights Golf. And Rory is asking if consideration might be given to reopen golf after the lockdown measures end, and if not, if there might be supports available to support golf courses that have already invested a fair sum of money into preparing for the season.
Yeah, great question, Rory. It's one I get every single day, and Jim can tell you it's my first thing that my colleagues ask for. This ministry obviously is responsible for seasonal operations, where we've been tasked with the reopening of seasonal entities, as well as outdoor recreational amenities. At this time, the Chief Medical Officer of Health in our health table has recommended we limit mobility, which is why we're in this most recent lockdown. My hope, and I know the hope of the Premier, is we'll be in a position in a couple of weeks where we are able to get people back to golfing. The big issue, I think, are people driving together from outside of the households, congregating outside, having a beer. Some of the things that the not golfing with people from your household. So there were a whole number of issues, particularly as we deal with these variants of concern, the new strains that have come in from India, Brazil, and the United Kingdom. So again, my hope is in the next couple of weeks, as we start to see case counts go down and the number of people being vaccinated go up, that we'll be in a better position. And I know golf is really important for people's physical and mental well-being, as you know, are the trails and people going out on a boat. So we are looking at that with respect to supports. We have a number of different initiatives, as I mentioned, in the tourism, hospitality, and culture sectors. The 2021 budget is investing, as I said, close to $1 billion in supports in order to support the sectors, and we're going to continue to get that money out. So I'm not sure what the size of your golf course is in terms of what programs you might be able to be eligible for, but certainly reach out to your local MPP and take advantage of the ontario.ca portal and see if you can apply for as many of those as possible. But these are very important things, and again, we hear about it all the time. We just ask that you be patient and continue to follow the health and safety guidelines as laid out by the Chief Medical Officer of Health and your local public health unit in Eastern Ontario.
Thank you. Lisa, we had a similar question from a different style of business. So Shelley Cumberland is asking us when bricks and mortar travel agencies are going to be able to access the Ontario Tourism and Hospitality Small Business Support Program. I suspect it's a similar answer, but I just wanted to note it because we have had a number of travel agencies who have wrote into us today.
Yeah, listen, great question, Shelley. Very important question because it's one that we continually get, and we recognize that your business model has significantly changed with the closure of the borders and your inability to sell those vacation packages. So we are going to make sure that you're part of that Ontario Tourism Small Business Grant. Again, one-time payments of up to $10,000 to $20,000. You will qualify. One of the other things, Shelley, and I'm glad that you brought this up because I actually see there might be a great opportunity here. One of the things that we're doing with the Tourism Economic Development and Recovery Task Force is asking them to build out made in Ontario itineraries. So Shelley, while I might go to you and say, I want to go to Cancun for a week, can you find me an all-inclusive and a couple of add-ons? And then you can get me that package on Sunwing or Air Transit or whatever. I envisage a day, and this is what we're trying to look at, where we actually start to build out those itineraries, so that I'm calling you, Shelley, for that made in Ontario authentic experience, and a detailed itinerary that I could have, that might be a trip to Chrysler that takes me then up for a day trip to Ottawa, and then down to the Thousand Islands and then into Kingston, and building that out. And so we've really challenged the task force to look at that. And so I'm looking forward to, they provided me with their preliminary report last week, and they're now into drafting that final report. I'm hoping that we're going to see that to be able to be built out, and then we'll work with our agency, Destination Ontario, to really amplify that, because there's so many things. And I saw this last summer when I was out on tour, and I've been only a year into the role, and I had planned on doing a couple weeks of tour as the Minister of Tourism, but it turned into, I was like, and so then I thought, no, it's not going to happen because we're in a pandemic. And then we had like an 11-week reprieve. So I went on the road for 11 weeks. And the things I saw in my own province that I didn't know we had was absolutely stunning and incredible. Like, I'm thinking fly-in lodges and in Northern Ontario, kayaking and canoeing in the Great Lakes, looking at things on the Georgian Bay or up in Sauble Beach, where, coming from Nova Scotia, seeing some of these pristine beaches shocked me, because I thought, you're only going to see this kind of beauty on the ocean. But no, you're seeing it when you're in Cornwall. You're seeing it when, you're on the Thousand Islands Parkway. And so we really need to, I think, rebuild with you guys, with the Authentic Ontario experience. And I really think that there's a true opportunity here. And unfortunately, it's weird, but the travel agents aren't stakeholders through this ministry. It's through the Ministry of Government Consumer Services, through TICO. But I think we need to have a stronger integration, because I think you're going to be very helpful for us as we lead our way out of this economic crisis. And so I very much view this summer is going to be the summer of the staycation, very hyper local. We're going to continue to support one another that way. Eventually, we'll be able to open our borders up to the rest of the country. But it's going to take probably 5 to 6 years, maybe even longer, before we get international travelership back to where it was. So this is a lengthy answer, but Shelley, you've got me so excited, because I think that there's a tremendous opportunity for both of us right here. And I don't think I could get through the past 14 months if I didn't have a level of optimism that when we get out of this, we're going to be bigger and better.
Thank you so much, Minister McLeod. I think all of our tourism assets just perked up all of a sudden, and they're thinking of all of the itineraries we could be offering throughout our region. And there's going to be a lot of excitement.
Yeah, like, look at, I got to tell you something, and I know we've got another question, but I got to say, look at what's in your own backyard that we have not been paying attention to, because we've all been so busy trying to pay for that family vacation in Florida or the Dominican or in Cuba, that we have forgotten to look in our own backyard. And we've forgotten to look at what's an hour away. And you know what? We've got it all. And let's flout it. And I think we got to come out of this with a little bit of swagger. And I can't wait to go down and visit you guys this summer to see some of the great things and to deliver some more money to you guys.
We are so excited to hear that. And we will definitely be speaking with your staffers to send you a lengthy list of potential places that would love to host you.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems fitting that our final question actually comes from SDG Tourism in partnership. We had a very similar question from Cornwall Tourism, and we're asking about a specific program that was released this year through the Cornwall and Area Chamber of Commerce. And it was with partners from SDG counties, the City of Cornwall, the CFDC, and the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne. So we had received funding in our region from the FedDev to support non-repayable contributions of up to $20,000 to help support tourism-oriented businesses that have been negatively impacted by COVID. So in most cases, they were extending their patios, they were putting out outdoor spaces, they were preparing for a COVID-friendly pandemic situation where they could continue to operate this year and potentially into the future. And we've had approximately 50 businesses that were funded through this program. And we're just asking if you foresee a similar program coming through to support them.
Yeah, look, I think we've outlined a couple of support specific to my sectors, also the retraining. So again, about $1 billion that we have for people to access. The federal government just came out, they've announced their budget, so they're still going through that process to get that passed, but there are significant supports there. One of the things I'm really excited about is working with the federal government. Destination Canada was given an increase to its budget by $100 million. One of the cool things that we were able to do last summer was take a partnership between my agency, Destination Ontario, and the federal agency, Destination Canada. And I was able to go out across the province and provide the regional tourism organizations with hundreds of thousands of dollars for hyper local marketing, so that they could do some things that they'd never done before. I'm absolutely committed to doing that this year. I don't know if it's going to be 14 or 15 million dollars. My staff are probably pulling out their hair. Why is she announcing that? But I'm really excited, because I think again, going back to Shelley's point, this is how we're going to build those itineraries. You guys know your area best. How do you build out that itinerary? And then how do you market that to your neighboring communities or your own community so that they're taking part of that? So that's one piece. The second thing, when you're talking about trying to adapt, I was really excited, and I pushed early on, and I think it was a game changer. It was the takeout delivery of alcohol for our restaurants. And so that we're going to continue that. That's not changing. We're going to make sure that works in our favor for a very long time. I think the patio piece has been revolutionary. I think that I think people really enjoyed that, being part of it. And when I was in Cornwall with Jim and Bernadette, we saw so many beautiful restaurants that built right out into the almost onto the street. And so I think that that's going to be absolutely something that we want to continue. One of the other areas that we're looking at in the tourism task force, and by the way, is already law, is for festivals and events. We've made it easier for municipalities to grant liquor licenses for parks, for example, and street festivals and that sort of thing. And so that's not as well known, but it's out there, and it's something that we're looking at tangibly in order to continue that authentic experience. And I've engaged a number of other groups that I want to give a little bit of funding to. One is the Canadian Live Music Association. We've invested in them $500,000 to create music cities across Ontario. And by being a music city, it doesn't mean you have to be 1 million people. You can be a town of 1,000 people. But what we want to build out is after the pandemic, a real sense that we're bringing live music and tourism and culture back to our communities with a good funded strategy. But even more than that, part of this will be having conversations with our municipalities about permitting. It will be talking about bylaws in terms of noise, because we want to create something post-pandemic that brings people together, and music does that. The other area that I'm absolutely thrilled about is the craft and culinary side of tourism that I think will emerge. And this is important for a largely agricultural area like yours outside of Cornwall, where you have a lot of food producers. You're talking about a lot of your agricultural fairs, right, earlier on. One of the areas I'd like to build out, and I've engaged the Ontario Tourism Culinary Alliance with the craft beer, the craft wine, the grape growers, and the craft distillers, and ask them to come up with a plan where we're not just talking about feast on and encouraging people to have farm to plate in the restaurants, but also encouraging that type of tourism. And, where can you get the freshest loaf of bread? Well, it's at Upper Canada Village, or it's at Watson's Mill in Manotick, right? And how do we take people on that culinary tour across Ontario? We're all seeing it happen in Italy. We're seeing it happen in France. I'm telling you, it can happen here. And so that's where I think we want to build out again. I am absolutely committed to making sure that post-COVID-19, that our Ontario tourism, culture, sport, and heritage products are better than when we went into this crisis.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Those are all exciting announcements, and we're very excited to be part of that, and very appreciative of the support that's come through to do our DMOs to help support our tourism assets. I know that one of the things that I've noticed as an economic development officer in our own communities is that some of these changes have been such welcome changes that I think people are not going to want to give up their extended patios and their main streets that are suddenly overflowing with people. They might be sitting farther apart, but they've taken back main streets, they've taken back parks, they've taken back conservation authority trails, and realized, I think, a lot of the green space and a lot of these opportunities that were there before the pandemic, but that suddenly became so much more relevant and so much more precious to them as other opportunities waned.
So Tara, I'm just going to say this, and with everybody on the line, I think we've got over 50 people. I often, when I hear a great line, I steal it, but I do it with attribution. And so I've always been thinking about what do we do? Main Street is obviously important, but I like the take back Main Street. So if you hear that in a speech of mine in the future, you can say I stole it from you, and I'll give you the attribution as well, Tara.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and please do use it. And we appreciate the support of our main streets, and we get that the measures that your ministry is making and that all of our hardworking and government officials are doing right now is making a difference in our communities. And despite the fact that we can't see as many of the people in our community, I think that there has been a lot of community growth this year, as we realize that the people in our lives are so important, especially when we can't actually see them. So thank you so much for your time today and for all of these amazing announcements.
All right, thanks so much, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you. Let's say we're going to be there in July. Let's hope for that, okay?
We thank you very much
for coming in, and it's always great to see your enthusiasm, because I think it really belongs in this tourism and cultural sector. You've always been involved through the 10 years that I've known you. And, it's only good news. We've made some changes that now are becoming permanent, like the patios. So we've come a long way, and we're going to keep that going forward. And we will make Ontario the tourist capital of the world. We have those opportunities, and we have the great resources to do that. So thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Jimmy Jam. We'll see you later.
Thank you. So everybody who's on the call today, our session is not over yet. So we were very honored to have the Honorable Lisa MacLeod joining us today, but we are still joining you for some follow-up questions. We had directed all of the initial questions to the minister, as her time was a little bit shorter with us today. We're happy to say that our other panelists have agreed to stay on longer, and we have a lengthy list of questions directed towards them. I'm going to start with one that is actually aimed towards MPP McDonnell. This one comes from Bill Barkley. And Bill is the owner of a garden center and orchard who made it through the first and second waves of the pandemic with a great deal of difficulty. He's saying that the third wave has been a real struggle for his business, and that they missed out on the first support for Ontario's small business grants, which closed its applications on April 7th. His question, and it's come to us from a couple of other businesses as well, is if you missed that deadline for the Ontario Small Business Support Grants, is there any likelihood that this intake period might open up again? And are there any other forms of support that they could be looking for?
Well, in this year's budget, I think Minister MacLeod talked about it, or alluded to it. There's a new funding that's available in I think the name of it is Ontario Tourism and Hospitality Small Business Grant that we should be seeing in the next few weeks. It's part of our budget that just passed this week. So more details will be coming out. So I think a lot of the travel agents, that some of them didn't qualify last year, this grant is to pick up some of those holes.
Thank you very much, Jim. And our next question, I think it's actually going to go to a couple of panelists. I'll start with Jim, but I believe that Leslie might also be able to answer some of this question. So Scott McDonald from Trihawk is asking if there are any planned programs to help businesses expand critical capabilities for manufacturing, lab services, and medical devices. And I imagine this would also fit into the Made in Ontario program that was launched last year to help with some of the COVID supports. Jim, do you know of any programs and supports that might fit into this?
Ontario Together program is still there. We've put more money into it for this year, this budget year, which means till March of next year. So that portal is open, and we're always looking for proposals through the the Minister of Federal or Economic Development, Vic Fideli. So there are applications go in there, plans, and they do review them, and you'll see funding announced for some of the, especially some of the larger projects. They're available now and again. But so that money's there, Ontario Together, and Vic monitors that fund, and there's people reviewing it. And if there's some, of course, there's always a limited amount, but I believe it's in the neighborhood of over $100 million in there again this year. So it's substantial, and they try to pick out the best programs and fund them.
I can add to that quickly. We're also waiting on some of the details of the federal budget and what exactly that will translate to on the ground level. We do actively have access to the FedDev Business Scale Up and Productivity funding program, but it's something that I would suggest that we dig into the project more specifically, and through that we can help Tri-Hawk understand which ones that are available right now and which ones are in the pipeline. So I would encourage a conversation with us there, Tri-Hawk.
Thank you so much, Leslie. And we will be reaching out to all of the registrants after this meeting with an email. So feel free, anyone who has some additional questions, to contact us. And we're happy to work with your businesses to connect you with the proper supports. So I'll be sending out the email, so please don't put me in your spam. It's going to be coming from tkirkpatrick@sdgcounties.ca. And I'm going to send out all of the applicable materials from today, as well as contact information for all of our panelists and a number of other local organizations who can help to grow and support your businesses. Thanks to the staff from Minister McLeod's office. If you go into the chat box, you'll also find some preliminary information on the Ontario Tourism and Hospitality Small Business Support Grant, and we will also send out information on that program. Our next question comes from Councillor David Smith with the municipality of South Stormont. He's also one of our county councillors, and he is asking about equality and fairness as it relates directly to lockdown measures. So his question is, for fair and equal business opportunities, small business, especially in a rural setting, should have the same rights and privileges that big box stores have. And his question is directed to MPP McDonnell, and he's just asking, essentially, what can be done to support these small businesses that have been forced to close during the pandemic when some of the big box stores are still open?
Well, I can tell you it's a tough question, and it's a tough answer to that. Some of the larger stores have been able to stay open because people still need food. They still need, essential pharmacy products just to live. So yeah, some of the big box stores, they've been limited to 25% capacity. They have the room for people to go in and social distance. On the latest lockdown that we've experienced, they haven't been able to sell other products. And I was in I heard some comments about a Costco, and I was in a Costco in Kingston on my way back from my one of my trips to the legislature. And I can tell you, I was amazed at what they did to make sure nobody bought anything but food and pharmaceuticals. They had pallets stacked up. So that's not happening this time. But saying that, we do have the small business grant that they aren't eligible for, up to $40,000. I think we have over $1 billion there now for this for businesses. I'm sure it's not enough. I know there's certain companies that didn't qualify last year. We opened up a little bit more this year, but we have more funding coming out in the recent budget, and I think from the latest one that Minister McLeod was talking about should be open probably in the middle of May. If we're getting more details on it, I think we're shooting for April, but there's only a week left, so I'm assuming it will be sometime in May. So it is a tough question, but it's all about the messaging we got from the medical table was you got to stop mobility, and you got to get rid of the reason for people to be out. And that's, some of these businesses, you really wonder why them, why are they shut down? But the variants, it's a different story this time. And so not that some of these small businesses couldn't operate, they can operate on an appointment basis, many of them, they can operate curbside and delivery. But we want to get rid of the reason why people would travel and go out and come in contact with anybody. And, we see even with these greater lockdowns, how much more difficult it is to stop at this time. And we are going outside. And, I noticed Barbara Ann asked that question. I think the rumors around here about what's opening, we're talking July now for that type of opening. And of course, much sooner for some of our stores and businesses with some restrictions. But I listened to the federal doctor, Teresa Tam, and she's talking about when we get up above 80% of the people the first dose. So if you add 2 weeks to that, the period after it takes, we're talking, having 80% of our riding or our area done by the end of May, which would mean, we're starting to, move towards a more open meeting type scenario in the towards at least the end of June. So that's good news. And the understanding is that the vaccines are starting to increase starting next week and the week after, doubling and then quadrupling by the last 2 weeks of May. And so it's not something we're really counting on for sure, but it's that optimism that's there. And it may be a week later, but it's certainly on that close. And without those extra numbers, we still think we'll be done by the end of May on the first dose. So that's good news. So I wish they had come out with, the framework they're working on, but I guess there's that idea. You don't want to put the framework out there until we're close enough to start opening up. But my word is I hate to see these festivals closed down because they're very hard to start up. Keep them down, but we're looking at numbers, certainly in the 1,000 or something if these vaccines go through, which unless something happens, and of course we all hear the international stage, the companies or the countries that are in dire trouble looking for vaccines, but if we still get what we're supposed to get, it should be a good news story this summer, I'm hoping.
Thank you, Jim. That is indeed great news to hear that additional vaccines are continuing to be rolling into our communities directly, and that we'll be getting closer to those mass vaccination clinics as the sun gets a little bit warmer and as summer comes a little bit closer. Our next question is kind of a combination of people. So we've had a number of registrants who have asked the question of they are in businesses that have fallen through the cracks of government supports for a variety of reasons. We've had a couple of businesses who reached out to us who are new. They opened just prior to the pandemic start. We have others that fit into categories of either home-based businesses or those that didn't meet the minimum threshold. So we have a wedding photographer who has mentioned that they fall into a misunderstood category of business in their own words. And they say that their mostly summer, mostly seasonal business is so dependent on cultural events that were cut off. Weddings are happening very rarely or in very small settings. They're not calling on the same professionals. We have a young gym owner who launched about a month before the pandemic started, and she had a great business plan. She had a great location. Everything was going well. She worked through the first lockdown where they were able to, under certain measures, where they could go outside and do training outside. And now she's stuck. We have a third business owner similarly saying that their business, small business, relies heavily on tourism traffic going to large neighboring festivals at the Highland Games and at some of the other fairs and events. So they're asking what can be done for these businesses that currently don't qualify for anything. And in their cases, we're hopeful that they may fall under the tourism support grant in some of these cases, in the case of some of the festivals. But the small gym owner who just launched their business, we have some small restaurants that just launched just prior to, or where their months of business, because they're seasonal, don't necessarily line up to the government programs. So I guess I can send this out to you, Jim, as well as to our other panelists. And I recognize we've discussed them today. There are a number of other supports for new businesses to help them through their expansion. And as I mentioned, we will be sending this out to all of those listening today, because we do recognize your needs and that some of your needs are very, very specific. So they're going to lead to more in-depth questions where we'd like to have some one-on-ones with you just to be able to better answer your questions. So Jim, if I could start with you just in terms of how we can support these falling through the crack businesses.
Well, first of all, I encourage everybody to go to the covertsupports.ca/Jim McDonnell website. And that takes us, and that's updated constantly with all the new programs. It's something that's been there. We established it last summer. It's still there and it's still being updated. So as the new budget comes out, they'll be also included. Now we suggested the original small business plan worked on the April 2019 to April 2020 timeframe, just to make it simple. That when businesses called and that month didn't work out, or if they were new and they had no history, I guess, from the previous year, there were alternatives put in place that allowed them to still qualify for this grant. And we're still working through. Minister Fideli has what he calls a SWAT team, and there's still a few weeks back. I understand they called everybody, but they're still working. They're working with the ministry to see some of the questions weren't answered or some of the rejections. They've reviewed them. Some of them aren't eligible. It's as simple as that. But many are, and some misunderstanding or wrong information went in, and it was kicked out by the computer when you start. So we're still dealing with those, and there's quite a list. And when I talked to him last, he was talking about give them a couple of weeks before, because there's every riding in the province has some of these, so there is a large number they're looking at, and there was a deadline to get those applications in, and they're still reviewing them. We have given, we talked about the electricity rebates we've given. If you've been shut down, there are rebates are there, and they're still open as far as property taxes for small businesses. Gyms, I believe the small business grant would apply there, different dates. There are some, especially the small, like the photographer. I'm not sure we have anything yet for that, but I'm hopeful in the new upcoming grant that's coming out, because the intent of this new grant that Minister McLeod talked about was to get some of the areas that didn't qualify before. And realizing that the small business grant was put out in a hurry, put out to make it very simple, very top level, and it was over $1 billion. So a lot of money went out. A lot of businesses were successful with getting that, but I'm sure there's always a limit, and we'll see what we can do going forward, because we do want to make sure that going forward we get as many people on the ground running as we can.
Thank you so much. Our next question is actually directed directly to the CFDC. Haley Cook is asking, has the CFDC found the need to amend their borrowing criteria to adapt to the changed business landscape? If yes, what has changed? And if no, have amendments been considered?
So I just want to address the prior question first before jumping to this one, because we did fund through the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund a photographer, a few seasonal businesses, as well as someone who started up right before the pandemic. So we again, I'll repeat, the RRF program is meant to help those who fall through the cracks. So if you haven't yet talked to Doreen Ashton-Wagner, the COVID-19 Business Relief Advisor, I really encourage you to reach out. I'll put her contact information right away in the chat. But that is what it is meant for. We have gotten very creative in ways to support businesses, and we also came out with our own independent fund prior to the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund, and we're exploring what a second round of that might look like as well. Now for Haley's question. So we don't have a set box that a business has to fall into. In essence, we just have to know that giving them additional funding isn't going to be to their detriment. In a lot of cases, funding isn't the solution. taking on more debt isn't the solution. So that's why we try and complement funding or loan programs with advisory services. So I mentioned the advisory services that we have through that are being offered through Create, through Candy, in partnership with Launch Lab. Sometimes it's not a matter of looking at taking on more money. It's a matter of looking at your existing financial situation and seeing if there's a way to rearrange it that will save you money, take advantage of some of the assets that you already do have, so that you can be more effectively managing the options that you have. Taking on more money or looking at grants is great, but you also have to look at your existing financial situation, and that's where these programs come into play.
And I can just add something quickly, and I know that a lot of the issues we have are finding out a lot about these programs, and that's one thing with the CFTC and the Cornwall Business. They really, they're experts in this, and sometimes there's a federal or provincial grant that's, people can't know everything, that's for sure. But they do have a great inventory and advisors there, so. It is a great source, and they've done a great job. And we want to, just make sure people understand that they're there, and they have their areas of expertise, and it's both levels of government help fund them, but it's for a reason, because the communities need that expertise, and they do a great job.
If I could just add something to this. All of our agencies are connected to each other in some way, shape, or form. We all refer people back and forth to each other's agencies, to Jim's office, to economic development offices. So reach out to one of us. And if we can't help you, we usually can refer you to another agency that can help you. Because we're so connected, we talk on a fairly regular basis, and we're fairly well aware of the different programs we each have. We might not know all of the details, but we know the general ideas, and those referrals happen on a regular basis. So just reach out to somebody, and one of us will get you to the right location.
Thank you very much, Candy. Yes, I think I'm just repeating what everybody else is saying here today. Businesses in our community have an awful lot of opportunities in their communities to reach out and get help. Every municipality, regardless of your location, has an economic development liaison or an economic development officer who can help work with you to grow your business, to introduce you, as our panelists have said today, to all of the other agencies and people and grant programs and loan programs and just referral programs. It's not always about money. Sometimes it's about just sitting down with somebody and talking about your business and what it needs, and having that mentorship and that coaching. And we have a number of agencies, including at the municipal and at the county level, who can help you. My office is open, the door is open virtually right now, but we're always happy to meet with you and to talk about your business and to bring in our amazing partners. If you're having an issue with one of your grants, sometimes we're going to send you right back to the grant person, and we're going to try and find you a person, not necessarily a computer program. If you're looking through, like as was mentioned today, MPP McDonnell's office and his wonderful liaison, Marilyn, are an amazing team when it comes to helping you navigate through the system. If you're in one of these situations where things should work for you, but they just aren't, the MPP's office can help you knock on the right doors and see if you are eligible, then you should be eligible, and they can help work with you on that. Candy and her team, Candy and Adam, they're great mentorship as well, and they're going to work with you on starting your business, growing your business, selling your business, as will Leslie and her team. And we're all here to support you today. We're very honored to have around 60 people joining us today, as well as our speakers. And as I have mentioned, that we will be sending this out to everyone today. So if there's anyone with questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You will be receiving an email from us shortly. And this session will actually also be hosted on YouTube, where it is being streamed live right now. It's also going to be available You can request it by email. You can find it on YouTube, and it's going to be featured through Cornwall Community Television later this week. Our final questions were, I must say that they are very similar to the first. So we're going to move on to just a few final remarks from each of our panelists. And if there's any questions from those listening today, you can put it into the chat box and we'll answer a few final questions if we have any from the audience. Thank you so much.
Who's up next?
MPP. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. Just the final words to say, reach out to our office. And I know over the years, we often point people to over to Leslie or Candy's offices because we know that the expertise they have. But the small business grant's a great example where we have a team within the minister's office, not the government side, but then looking at some of them, and they've run into everything from contact numbers that weren't in service, just different things that were people shouldn't have been kicked out of the system, but they just there was some error or some problem that was if it wasn't addressed would have stopped them from getting money. So we are looking at that. There is more money, and I think there was a good example from Minister McLeod talking about some of the new areas that there's grant money for. And of course, if you qualify for small business, I think it's very clear that you won't qualify for the next one coming out. This is really meant to get some of the areas that weren't successful or weren't able to qualify in last year's money. So we're trying to make it through. And I know one of the questions that didn't come up today was on the paid sick leave. And we've been working with the federal government trying to enhance the program. And my understanding was on the weekend we thought we had an agreement, and after reading the paper today I'm not so sure, but we're not really sure. We had the one program, there was over $1 billion put into that. There's only about 40% of it used. So I guess from our point of view, we don't want to start up a new plan. We want to enhance the one. We've agreed to cover all the extra costs. So hoping we have some new word on that going forward, because that does impact a lot of the businesses. We're a little concerned about putting something in place that will affect businesses going forward, because it is, it's going to be tough coming out of this for a lot of businesses. Revenues have been down or non-existent for a couple of years or a year and a half now. So we want to make sure that we don't saddle something that's going to impact everybody going forward. So the money's there and we want to take advantage of it. And that's Ontario taxpayer money that's sitting there. And we think it would be a shame not to be able to utilize it and come up with one comprehensive plan, and creating two doesn't seem to be the answer. So going forward, your feedback to our office is important, because we do provide areas where we're not helped. And I think travel agency is one good example there. It didn't qualify last year, but we see this year they will be, hopefully going forward. But there will always be some targeted grants will not apply and will not fix everything. So it's going to be a work in progress as we go through. There is a lot of different avenues or not-for-profits that we encourage people to go to the Ontario Trillium Fund. We've added an extra $105 million there to get these not-for-profits going. We're worried that many of them have already canceled functions for this year. So we're talking, getting through this year to be back next year strong and ready to go again. So apply. And, I see some complaints about, you hear some people say, well, this group always gets money, but if you don't apply, you can't get the funding. I think that's the message. And so try, and they're a lot more flexible than there is a lot more money, many times more money in some of these programs than was ever there before. And it's intended to make sure that we get through this as best as possible. And hopefully this is a 1 in 100 year event, and we'll worry about it. The next generations will have to worry about it. So anyway, thanks very much. And thanks, Tara, for hosting this. I think it was a great event. And we're available. Our office is there through Marilyn, Marcel, Greg, and Al in our office. We're working virtually for the most part, but we're there. And there's been a huge increase in mail. I go through a lot of correspondence trying to keep up, but up till this week and back, and even this week and back and forth to Toronto. So it does take up a lot of your time. So Anyway, thank you again.
Thank you, Jim. It was a pleasure having you join us today, and we greatly appreciate your time for this Q&A. I'm going to leave it next to Candy Pollard for a few words.
Yeah, to reiterate a little bit of what Jim said is the applications are, some of them are a little bit more complicated than others, yes, but for the most part, they've been fairly simple. I try to go through all applications and kind of get right through it to see what it's all about. So if somebody does have issues with an application, reach out to us. We're happy to help you and give you what our experience has been in terms of filling out that application. Sometimes we can hold your hand and walk you through it. So whatever your needs are, please reach out to us. We will help, or we will find someone who can help you. I myself, like I said, I have my small business that I've had for 30 years and we're suffering, yes. But don't sit back and wait for it to come to you. You have to go out and try to find the things that are going to help you. So give us a call. We'll be happy to talk to you and go through whatever options we're aware of that you could take advantage of. And then we'll help you through those options.
I guess that's me now. So I just want to finish by explaining that we're managing on what we call a cheat sheet internally, 23 pages of different government programming and supports, and it's constantly changing, constantly evolving. I don't think anyone really expects business owners amidst all of the things that they're dealing with right now to manage that. But we will help you. It's difficult to say on a webinar like this where you should go. But if you get on the phone and call one of us, we will speak through this 23 pages of different programming and figure out which one is best for you. And as Candy said, just like Candy, we will walk you through, hold your hand through the application process, sometimes troubleshoot if necessary, if there's something weird that's going on. So the bottom line, the moral of the story is reach out to one of us, and we will absolutely help you find something. No one should be falling through the cracks. There are businesses that sometimes the best thing to do is to go on hold, and that's a tough decision, but you don't have to make that alone. Let's make that together with looking at all of the options first. So that's kind of my parting words, just to really encourage people to reach out to us, and that's what we're here for. That's what we want to do, help you. And thank you again, Tara, and the team at Economic Development, and Jim and Candy for involving me in the presentation. And hopefully we only have a few months left of this.
Thank you very much, Leslie, and thank you, everyone. And I think that, as has been said, one of the messages we wanted our businesses to know this morning is that there are a team of people here working for you, and we are happy to work with your businesses, and we won't always have the answers, but we work in a team, and we will find somebody who might have the answers for you. And that team does include your municipalities. It does include the counties. One of the things I like to tell to young businesses when I speak to them is that we are your ambassadors, and we are going to work as your concierge. And your municipality isn't always the place where you're going to find the grant or the loan or the information you need, but we are information ambassadors, and we will find it for you, and we will help you make these connections. And everyone on the call today is going to work similarly hard to help grow your business and help your business survive right now, which is what so many of our businesses are just trying to do, is just to stay afloat and make it through this period until some sense of normalcy returns. So as I have mentioned, you can reach out to me directly at tkirkpatrick@sdgcounties.ca. I'm going to be sending you contact information for all of our panelists and the organizations that they represent. And if there are any follow-up questions, this Q&A is a one-day session, but we are here to stay. So please continue to forward your questions, and we will work with you and try to make sure that you get the answers that you need. So thank you, everyone, for joining in. And I think we're going to leave it out at this point in time. And I look forward to hosting another one of these sessions in a couple of months as this rapidly changing situation evolves. And I hope that I can call on you to come back and join us for a similar opportunity. Have a great morning, everyone.
Thank you.